Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'll be talking about Erzsebet Bathory from the Castlevania Nocturne series, so if this is something that interests you, please stick around. Also, if you haven't liked, comment, or subscribed, please do so. It really helps the channel and helps my growth. I have a goal to hit 1,000 subscribers. I'm currently at 600, so we're almost there, and any support is greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. So Erzsebet Bathory is the vampire antagonist in Castlevania Nocturne. She is called the Vampire Messiah, and essentially she is the vampire who has been able to take on soul fragments of the goddess of war and healing Sekhmet, and Sekhmet is an Egyptian deity. So a little backstory about Sekhmet. Prior to thousands of years prior to the start of the series, Sekhmet was a goddess that walked among the mortal plane, and she again was the goddess of healing and war. And then after some time went by, she ended up passing on into I guess the other world, or just kind of into a higher plane, and so her body left the mortal plane, but she left her blood in the physical world. And so vampires would try to seek her power and try to drink her blood to try to hope to be her vessel so that she may return. And that's also how we get Drolta into the mix, because Drolta was actually a high priestess for Sekhmet thousands of years prior to the start of the series as well. And that's how Erzsebet Bathory ended up getting she actually got turned into a vampire by Drolta, and after some time took on drank Sekhmet's blood, and then obviously she became a worthy vessel because she was the first vampire that was able to drink her blood without dying and combusting immediately. What I found really interesting about Erzsebet's character in particular is I did not know that she was actually basically there's a real world example of her named Erzsebet Bathory, and she was just as heinous and just as evil. She was responsible for hundreds of atrocities. She was kidnapping I believe there were slaves or servant girls, drinking their blood, like virgin girls, and just really subjecting them to all sorts of torture. And Erzsebet Bathory in the show actually did the exact same things, if not times 10. And the original Erzsebet Bathory was locked up in a castle until her final days, until she died. Same thing with Erzsebet, and that's how Drolta found her. So I thought that was a pretty cool nod to like the real world, and kind of let us know exactly how evil Erzsebet really is. Now, I gotta admit, I did not find Erzsebet's character to be that interesting in season 1. However, after we had a little bit more backstory, and after we get a little bit more of a feel for her personality in the show and just who she is as a person, I do find her one-liners to be a bit more entertaining than they were initially. There's something about Erzsebet that is very arrogant, very much so, in the same vein as I would say Carmilla. So she has a lot of ambition and she executes it. The only thing with Erzsebet is I do feel like Drolta is pulling her strings behind the scenes. You know, Erzsebet never really came across like she was fully in control. That being said, her sadism and her just ability just to kind of show how depraved she is really did shine through. And I really love seeing her interactions with Olrox. She seems to be very knowledgeable in the vampire community. She knows exactly who are the movers and shakers, and she seems to be very much involved with even the humans. There seems to be, especially in Nocturne, some type of like hierarchy or a government type of agreement between the vampires and the humans, because she's able to kind of walk around them, talk amongst them, and the regular humans are not even batting an eye. Like, they're used to her, and to a certain degree, at least the wealthy are, right? So it goes to show that Erzsebet in this particular era seems to have some type of dominion, or I wouldn't say leadership, but she's definitely a countess. She's someone who should be revered and respected, and she's definitely one of the more powerful vampires in that generation. I think second only to Alucard, which again, that's a conversation for a different day on who is actually stronger between the two of them. But getting back to Erzsebet, she is, in my opinion, it took a while for me to really get used to her, and you get to see a lot of her, like who she really is in season 2. You can tell that the relationship that she has with Drolta is a mutual one. She refers to Drolta as a servant, but she absolutely needed Drolta. It almost seems like she couldn't function without her, and the lengths that she was willing to go to bring her back she was fierce, like ferociously trying to make sure that the abbot brought her back. And I thought that was pretty cool of her, just to kind of see like, oh, okay, even she has attachments. Now I will say, design wise, I didn't like her initial design. I didn't like her hair. It was kind of like an updo, but again, it took a while to grow on me. After a while, I was like, you know what, she's actually very tall, very statuesque. Her backstory scene before she was turned, that design was gorgeous. She had long flowing red hair. She looked beautiful. So I'm guessing the whole updo is just to kind of have that more regal and more, I don't know, just kind of like that air of power about her. So I've grown to like that. And I love the necklace that she has. It's like a red ruby. I don't know the type of gemstone it is, but it's also a very gorgeous necklace. And then her clothing also grew on me, because again, it's really hard when you have your second in command, Drolta, getting all of these power-ups and transformations and just really being sickening, and then you're supposed to be the big bad, and your transformation, albeit cool, you just kind of look like a giant cat lady. And I do understand, she who mauls, vampire lioness, the messiah, etc., like her being kind of like a lioness kind of vibes, it makes sense. But I didn't like it at first, but upon rewatching, especially when she fought Richter the first time, she really did exude power on a scale that we hadn't seen since like a Dracula. And again, that's another conversation to see, like, is she as powerful as Dracula? But she definitely, she was swatting Richter's magical abilities like it was nothing. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then again, of course, in season 2, when she finally gets the second soul fragment of Sekhmet, she gets like a second transformation, and this one's even more primal looking than ever before. I really liked that design, and I also liked how she was fighting. One thing about Erzsebet I don't think we give her enough credit for is she can actually throw hands, and she's a brawler too. And whoever's her voice actress, I really appreciated like the battle cries that she had. She really brought it home, especially in those final few episodes when she's giving it all. I will say one thing about Erzsebet that I'm kind of side-eyeing about is when Drolta betrayed her. I don't know why she came across as very like shocked, like how did you not see this coming? At the end of the day, like Drolta kind of showed you who she was from the jump, and if she's anything like you, a narcissist, like you should have seen that coming. So I thought that the way she went out was pretty like pitiful, but considering how she lived her life not only as a human but as a vampire, I guess it was fitting. And not to be funny, but Drolta was able to become Sekhmet's vessel for like, another episode, and then she ended up meeting her end. So it's not like Drolta one-upped her. But I don't know. Erzsebet, she, again, season 1 wasn't like the biggest fan of her. I really feel like Drolta stole the show. But I think in season 2, she really carried a weight. I also liked some of the scenes she had with her and the abbot. There was just certain things that she would say, because I feel like she wanted to be worshipped as a goddess, and it's just interesting how, especially like the Catholics will never worship her, but in her mind, she was like, oh, you don't have to worship me, I'm just going to force you into submission. And that just shows how ambitious and how domineering she was. And like, you need that in a villain. You need someone who has that pressure, who has that evil, that evilness about them to really execute. One of her shortcomings that I did notice is it didn't seem like she was the most tactical person. Again, I think she left a lot of that planning and strategy to Drolta, which I felt like kind of undermined her authority. And it really seemed like when Drolta died, she didn't really know what to do, and she needed direction. And I don't know if that was intentional on the creators, but that's just something that I noticed is, Dracula, for example, he was the big bad in the first 2 seasons of the original Castlevania, but he was very much in control, in charge, knew exactly what he was doing. He might not have been forthcoming about like his overall plans, but he was in control, whereas Erzsebet, I think she just needed a little bit more direction from outside forces to really execute them. So let me know what you guys think about Erzsebet Bathory. After watching season 2, I've grown to really like her design. On a side note, I think it'd be really cool if we got a current generation console game with this particular iteration of Castlevania characters, playable. Like maybe an RPG. I doubt a fighting game would make sense, especially because all the Castlevania games that I'm aware of are all RPGs. But it would be so cool to fight against someone like her as a final boss. So let me know what you guys think. Did I miss anything about Erzsebet? Do you think I should have went into more details in? Also, forgot to say this at the beginning of the video, but please like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate the support, specifically from the Castlevania community. I say this in every video. You all have been so supportive, so welcoming, and just so engaged with my content, and I really appreciate that because I actually really love the show. Especially just the overall diversity of the cast, the animation, the fight scenes, and just the lore. The lore is so rich in Castlevania, so I love the fact that I can talk about this stuff, go on my little unhinged rants, and just talk about it until, you know, the sun comes up. So I really appreciate that. Like always, you guys have a great rest of your week. See you guys in the next video, and take care.